Hey there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Today I'm going to be showing you 10 books that were unfortunately disappointments for me in 2022. You know, when you have authors that you've loved in the past and you see that they have a new release and you really hope that you're going to get the same type of vibe or the same types of feelings that you had when you read books that were your favorites by them. So you kind of at least expect a 4 or 5 star rating out of those books. A couple of the books that I'm going to mention definitely have this vibe within them, and then a couple of them are books that I really had heard so much good things about, or at least I've seen them on Goodreads and then I've seen what kind of rating they have and I'm like, okay, this should be good, and then they're not. So yeah, I've definitely felt very disappointed, and for some of them they've really kind of made me feel slumpish, because when I finished them I had hoped that I would love them and then I didn't, and it's left me feeling kind of negative in the end, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I'm going to show you a couple of reads that I had hoped would be successes for me but ended up as disappointments, and once I cross off this chapter with them, we're going to move on, okay? So the first book is probably one of the books that kind of hurts the most, because last year a book by this author was in my top 10 reads. It's the For Aunties in a Wedding by Jessie Q. Sutanto. So last year we had Dade for Aunties, and I really loved that book so much. It was so much fun, and I really had hoped that the sequel to this book, so For Aunties in a Wedding, that I would have just as much fun and that we'll just move on to like a different level of funniness with the aunties. But really this book felt like a repetition of the first book for me. So I didn't really get invested in all of the murder situations within the story, and really it felt like a copy-paste situation, but within a different setting and a different wedding that we're following. So unfortunately this one was not a success for me. While I gave Dade for Aunties 5 stars last year, I gave this one 3 stars, and actually if I think about it, should be 2, I think. But yeah, unfortunately it was just not a success for me, and I do plan on picking up other books by Jessie Q. Sutanto because I do like her humor and her cultural references. So I'm going to read more by this author. I'm going to give her another chance and just hope for the best. Next up is a series. I've mentioned it in my series wrap-up video, and I did mention that I hated those books, but I do need to say that really those books were such a disappointment for me. It's the Broken Bonds books by Bree. It's actually a 6-book series, but I only read the first 3 because I could not make myself continue on with the series. It's just that I'd heard so many good things about these series, about these books, and then they have such gorgeous covers as well. And then when you go on to Goodreads, they have such a high rating and so many good reviews, and I kind of felt cheated in the end, because I was like, am I the only one who doesn't like these books? They were really not for me. So it's a kind of an urban fantasy setting where we're following a woman who is bonded to a couple of guys, but honestly we don't find out what this bonded situation means. We don't really know why she has such an kind of an animosity with a couple of the characters within the book, and there's a situation where they're on the run from some people, but we don't know why they're on the run. So a lot of things are unclear throughout the whole plot, and it just left me wanting to know what's going on, but then never getting the answer. So I was just so frustrated in the end that I just decided this is not worth it. I'm not continuing on, and yeah, that was it for me. So this is definitely a disappointment, because you have such high expectations which when you hear just so many good things about a certain book or a certain series, and then it just doesn't live up to the hype. So yeah, I'm sorry, you were probably hearing the vacuum downstairs. I just did not. I was kind of in the zone, so I didn't notice it, but now that it's gotten quiet, I think you're going to notice. But anyway, I'm continuing on with a book which is called Ghosted by J.M. Darhouwer. This book, I think I saw that Larissa from Larry Reads really loved this book. I think she gave it 4.5 to 5 stars, and I also saw that it has a very good rating on Goodreads, and I was like, okay, I need to read this because it's a second chance romance between two people who have a child together. It's a rock star romance as well, and I was like, I really need to read this. But I felt like it dragged on for so long, and I found that the two main characters did not communicate properly with each other, and I really hate it when people who are adults cannot communicate properly with each other. And then we have also the fact that I don't think that the guy kind of redeemed himself for whatever he did. There was also a woman that made problems for them, and he kind of didn't make his relationship with her clear, which I hated, because if you're a guy who is after a woman to get her back, you're going to need to kind of clear the field and explain to her that she's the only one for you. And I really hate it when then a third woman or a third person comes in and is kind of trying to lay claim on the guy. And I'm like, why are you not just saying that you are not interested in any way in that person and that they're not in your life, etc., etc.? It just didn't make sense to me. So yeah, I really didn't like this book. I gave it 2 stars, and yeah, it kind of left me feeling slumpish when I finished it. So I'm really laying a lot of blame on this book. I really didn't like it. Next up, we have a shorter book, a novella by Shanora Williams. It's called My Professor, and I have to say that I was really intrigued to pick up books by Shanora Williams because I saw that Michae from Oh Hates Michae was shouting out a lot of her books as recommendations because she loved them. Not specifically this one, I have to say, but other books by this author because they're quite steamy, this one as well. But this one I really didn't like because, so I have to say that it's called My Professor, so we obviously know that it's between a professor and a student of his. So it's a forbidden taboo romance. But what didn't work for me is that the guy is supposed to be this commitment phobe type of guy, and then there is an insta-love plot where he falls in love with the heroine within about 2 days time. And I'm like, how does this happen? Someone who is absolutely averse to relationships and is absolutely commitment denial goes ahead and falls in love within 2 days with a woman, and she's this virginal type of heroine and he is this experienced kind of guy. And I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I've read other novellas before where I've seen insta-love plots done much better. So that's why I kind of couldn't get into the groove of this one. And I think I gave it 2 stars as well because it did not work for me. For the next book, it's another situation where I've loved other books by this author before, and I've been looking out to see whether I'm going to like their latest release. It's by Rachel Lynn Solomon, and their latest release was See You Yesterday. This book involves a time loop, and I don't know, I think I didn't research this book prior to picking it up. I just knew that it was a new release by Rachel Lynn Solomon and I wanted to read it. And then when I found out, once I was listening to it, that it's a time loop romance, I knew it would not work for me because there's very few romances with kind of time loops or time jumps that will work for me. I don't like the Groundhog Day situation within a story, and it kind of, I don't know, the repetition of it just does not work well for me. And I gave this book 3 stars. It wasn't bad. I do have to say that I really liked the ending, but I'm just not the type of person who should pick up these types of books. So it's just a me thing, I think. But it was definitely a disappointment for me because I've loved all the other works by this author that I've read before. The next one is also one that I actually anticipated for it to be a 4 or 5-star read for me as a new release this year. It's by Christina Lauren, and it's their latest release called Something Wilder. When I read part of the synopsis and I saw that it involved a treasure hunt, a second chance romance, kind of also like an adventure type of plot within the book, I was immediately sold, and I was like, okay, this sounds so cool. And when the story started, when we viewed the relationship of the two characters before they broke up and they got to see how their second chance would work out, I was getting into it, but then the whole adventure plot and the treasure hunt plot kind of got in the way of the romance, especially because there were a lot of very incredible things going on within that treasure hunt, that kind of got me to fail to suspend my disbelief within the situations that were occurring. So yeah, really the romance took a back seat in this one, and instead of it being a 5-star read, because it had the potential of being a 5-star read, it was bumped down to 3. Next up, we have a young adult story called Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I have to say that I think that I was expecting this book to be better because I read a lot of Goodreads reviews that were hyping it up, and a couple of the booktubers that I follow also hyped it up a bit. So I was like, okay, this sounds really cute because it involves, I think, a high school senior who had a crush on this guy for a long time, but he moved away, and then he moves back to their hometown. So she is kind of set her her interest into getting him back to notice her and to like her. But then there is this bad boy next door, like her neighbor, who kind of notices that she wants him not back because she wasn't with him, but she wants to attract this other guy, and he offers to help her out, kind of make him jealous, make him notice her. And we have a plot where instead of her actually falling in love with that guy, she falls in love with the neighbor instead, with the bad boy. This book had a potential for being a 4 or 5-star read for me, even though it's a young adult story, because there were elements within it that I really did like, especially the bad boy neighbor was kind of depicted very properly. But then I really just could not connect with the main female character. I didn't like how she was so fixated on the other guy and how she didn't see what's in front of her the whole time. It kind of made me feel like she's very, how do you say, in Bulgaria we say someone who has a very, very narrow vision. I do get that they're teenagers, and obviously with teenagers that's often the case, but it just got me feeling very frustrated most of the time within the book, so I just couldn't enjoy it to the fullest. That's why I think it's more of a disappointment than a pleasant surprise for me, and I gave this one 3 stars. Next up is a book that I really thought I was going to like more because of the premise of the book. The book is called Do You Take This Man by Denise Williams, and when I saw the synopsis for it, I think the only thing that I saw is that it involves an officiant, like a wedding officiant, and a guy who is planning weddings. So because I had not read any romances that involve a wedding officiant, and if you think about it, wedding officiants are people who are very well spoken when it comes to describing people who love each other, because they need to officiate like the event of a wedding of people being in love. So I was really intrigued by this premise within this book, and I was hoping that I was going to love this one, but unfortunately I didn't. I gave it 3 stars. We're following the heroine, who is actually a divorce attorney, but then by chance she officiated one wedding, and then someone made a film, like a clip for YouTube or whatever, and that clip went viral. So they kept on inviting her to officiate weddings, and then at one of the weddings that she officiates, she meets a guy who is new to organizing weddings. He's a wedding planner, and they immediately don't hit it off. They're immediately kind of enemies because they have a bump in with each other and they don't like each other from the start. But we do see that the guy does feel an attraction to her. So he's kind of more on the fence with the whole enemies to lover situation. He's more going for it, and then she's more struggling to get on board. So yeah, I just, again, I didn't feel the connection that I needed to feel for the female character. I felt like she was very bitchy. A lot of the times the guy was such a cinnamon roll hero, and she just did not want to give him a chance for no apparent reason, and it just frustrated me a lot of the times. And I had hoped, because this book really had the potential, again, of being a 4 or 5 star read for me, and then it just was lacking. And I'm sorry for it, because I really had high hopes for it. And yeah, I gave it 3 stars. The next book, I have to say that I was disappointed, because I've heard a lot about this author before, and I actually have almost the entire backlist of this author on Storytel. And I picked up the book that I thought I was most likely going to like. The book is 40 Love by Olivia Dade. And it involves a reverse age gap situation where the woman is older and the guy is younger. And the woman is a teacher who goes on her annual holiday to this paradise-like setting. She has bought a non-refundable vacation, and she meets this guy when she's in an awkward situation. She's gone into the sea and a wave has taken off her bikini top, and she kind of recruits him to help her get out of the sea without showing her bits. So yeah, they have, I thought it was going to be a bit more fun of a setting, but it very quickly got serious. There's insta love involved, which I don't like in books. And then it's like they were trying to figure out how their relationship would work after being together for 2 days. And I'm like, that's just going way too far. I mean, in real life, you're going to think, okay, so this is a vacation fling. I'm going to see whether when I go back home, I'm going to miss this guy, or whether we can make something work for him to fly back or for me to meet him somewhere else. But they were like planning out way ahead. And I was like, whoa, 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 what is going on here? So I just did not like that aspect within the book, the insta love, and then the planning of a serious relationship. And then I don't know, it just had a potential for being more again. Honestly, I don't know, just something was not clicking for me with this story. And because I've heard so much about Olivia Dade, with spoiler alert, and then there was another book that I don't remember the title of, but I just thought that I was going to vibe with this author for some reason, and it just did not. It was not the most successful read for me. So yeah, I'm going to give another shot to this author. I'm going to read another book by them, but then if it doesn't work out for me again, I'll probably give up on them. So yeah, let me know if you like their books, if I should give them another shot, and which one I should read, because this one definitely was not my favorite. Now I need to talk about probably the biggest disappointment of the year, because it's a book that I actually have not finished yet, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to finish it. We're talking about The Atlas Paradox by Olivie Blake. If you followed my channel since last year, you will know that The Atlas 6 was one of my biggest surprises of last year, because prior to last year, basically, I had not read any fantasy books, especially any urban fantasy books. So when I picked up The Atlas 6, I was so immersed into that story, and I was so involved and so surprised that I really liked that one. And yeah, I was very much looking forward to The Atlas Paradox, and when it came out on audio in Storytel, I immediately picked it up. But then I read about 60% of that book by now, and I'm just not, I feel like an idiot when I read that book, because it focuses so much on scientific things. It focuses so much on things that just a normal reader has difficulty following the plot, that really it makes you feel stupid. I do understand, like, for example, I read Babel by R.F. Kuang, and there you have a bit of a similar situation where there's just so much going on within this fantasy world that it may feel overwhelming at times, and it may feel like you're being left behind as a reader. But for some reason, I think that just R.F. Kuang did a better job of taking you with them. Well, with the Atlas 6, it was like something that Olivie Blake wanted to write because she's interested in that topic, but then really not considering that not many people will understand what she's talking about within the plot. So I kind of lost interest within the plot and also the characters. So I think that the strength of the previous book is that even though you're following like 6 or 7 characters, you're invested in all of their stories. And here I was like, I'm starting to not care for anyone particularly within this story, and it just sucks because in the first book you were like, I definitely want to know what this guy or this girl can do, and I definitely want to see how their story will progress. I want to see if there's anyone who's going to die in the end. So I was just so hyped up on wanting to know what's going on. And then with this one, my curiosity and my will to proceed just died. It just died a very slow, painful death. And I honestly don't know if I'm going to finish this one because I stopped at the 60% mark maybe a month ago. And I know that if I'm going to try to continue with it now, I'll probably be just as lost as I was then, even if not even more. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just not, I'm very disappointed. Obviously, I haven't given this book any rating because I did not finish it yet. But if I were to rate it right now, it would be a 2-star, maybe 1.5 to 2-star. And it's going to take a lot of willpower for me to try and continue on. So yeah, let me know if you've read it. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. Let me know if you think I should continue, and I'll have to see about that. So these were the 10 books that were the biggest disappointments for me for 2022. I hope that for next year I'll have fewer than this year, but I do have to say that I consider it a success that it's only 10 because I've read about 200 books this year, and 10 out of 200 is not too many. So yeah, I definitely am happy with the result. Let me know if you had any books that disappointed you, that I need to kind of commiserate with you about. And I hope to see you very soon in the next one. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care and bye-bye.